First today, Kate Winslet has given a new interview to Harper Bazaar magazine. She's talking about body image ahead of her 50th birthday next year. She says she learnt her body hang-ups from her mum, saying, "I don't know a single contemporary of mine who grew up seeing her mother looking in the mirror saying, 'I look nice.' My mother never did. It was always, 'Oh God, I don't think I can wear this. Do I look hippie? Does my bum look big in this?'" That famous thing, does my bum... Does that sound familiar to you, Brenda, or not?
I don't have a bum, so I don't worry about it looking big or small or anything like that. But in my house, growing up, talking about your body and your shape of it wasn't a thing at all. It was...
At all?
No, you know, body confidence or body sensitivity. It was, there's the food in your plate, you better eat all of that and eat it up and become big, nice and healthy. You know, I think for me, also growing up, I didn't see myself on telly or anything like that to look at it and say, well, I should look like that or I shouldn't look like that. The only time that I was kind of concerned of it was when they started talking about size 0 and this is what you should look like. And I'm like, who, according to who should I look like that?
See, it's funny because, I mean, we didn't have that either, like my generation. There was nobody talking about what you should look like. But I relate to that in that my mum was always on a diet.
Yeah.
Or of some kind, or had some kind of device. My favourite one was like this shaky belt. It was like you stood on this thing, don't know if anyone remembers this, as a platform, and it had this rubber belt that went round the back. And
Slenderton. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and they put them on their abs. Yeah. It would electrocute your abs. Yeah, yeah.
So she didn't talk about it, but it was kind of there.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with you that, you know, it would have been sort of the 90s for me back then. And my mum was never derogatory about her own body or her own appearance. And in fact, she very much just taught me how to get on with life and not be kind of frivolous about it. But definitely it was the time of all the exercise DVDs were in the house with people in lycra and a sweatband doing the Grapevine.
Leg warmers.
Jane Fonda. And all the milkshake diets and the weigh-ins and the Weight Watchers. And yeah, that was definitely part of my mum's life.
Did that affect you, do you think?
No, because I just think women were on diets all their life and it was okay to talk about people's bodies and give unsolicited opinions and advice, and that's how we grew up. I definitely grew up wanting to be thin, but it wasn't my mum's fault. It was magazines, it was peer pressure, it was aspirational, and that was the 90s.
See, it's funny how you say it wasn't your mum's fault, and of course it's not your mum's fault.
Yeah.
But I would like to say that I'm very aware of these things. I'd be very conscious of my girls, that I don't want to talk about their bodies or you know, make them judge themselves. But sadly, I have to confess, now they will say to me, "Mum, you are really messed up about your body," and it has.
Oh, that's interesting.
Come on to us. And I feel quite shame about that because I obviously, you know, talk the talk in terms of confidence, but what they must have seen me do is quite different.
Right, OK.
But I think that, you know, as well, look, here we go doing it again, and we're, you know, as women, we blame ourselves constantly.
Yeah.
And yet that is something culturally that's been in the ether since time immemorial, is this sense that women have to look good. That's supposedly our job. You know, I grew up with a mum who really, I mean, she never wore makeup. She used to wear every day this army surplus green jacket and a pair of jeans and a T-shirt. And, you know, I was really lucky in that I didn't grow up feeling the sort of pressure to be perfectly made up and things, which, interestingly, I think has only got worse. The more we talk about equality and the more we talk about, you know, feminists, and actually the pressure on my daughter now, I think, is so much more than it was on me growing up in the kind of 80s. And I think the objectification of women now and the kind of constant sexualisation of images of women, I think, is far, far worse since pornography kind of filtered in through the internet and everything. But I think often we're our worst enemies.
So you didn't get that from your mum. Do you feel under pressure to look a certain way? Are you conscious of your body? Are you completely...
I definitely, when I was in my teens, in my 20s, I worried a lot about weight, and my weight went up and down a lot, you know, to do with my emotional state. You know, if I was happy, I was slimmer. If I was less happy, then I definitely would get overweight. But I think in general, I mean, and certainly as you get older, I mean, if you worried about those things now, then you'd never leave the house, would you? So I think you get to a point where you are quite devil-may-care about those things. I mean, obviously, you know, we're sitting here on television, we've been preened and polished and made up, and, you know, and this is not what I look like in my day-to-day life. But I do think that there's an inordinate pressure on women, and I'm quite shocked that men now...
I was going to say it affects boys as well.
Well, no, I think that what's happened is instead of us sort of leavening it out and realising that we could be a bit more like men used to be, now men all
they're
aspire.
under the
They're
spotlight.
waxed and they're buffed and they're, you know, I mean, it's exhausting. We're all just
Because
turning
we're all
into,
critiqued online by strangers now. You know, no matter who you are, if you're documenting yourself on social, you can get this feedback and this criticism of...
But I don't think it's just that. I just think that there's something deep in the human psyche. I mean, there's very few people, male or female, who are going to stand in front of a mirror and go, oh, God, I look gorgeous.
I still don't
you know.
think that boys... Well, I don't know. How can I speak for boys? I don't get the impression from my girls' male friends that they feel judged by it in the same way. And one thing one of my daughters pointed out, if you look at Instagram, the girls and the contemporaries are their main influence, aren't they, are all kind of perfect and they make sure that they're posing, etc., etc. The boys are kind of goofy and mucking about and, OK, they might look buff, but they're a whole load of different things, whereas girls tend to be reduced to that one thing.
They're definitely less internally disrupted by it. And I don't know why, because I've got a daughter and a son. And I would say my son doesn't give much of a damn, and my daughter does. And, you know, I feel guilty, but I don't know how I've managed to do that because I don't think I've treated them differently.
Well, because, you know, we like to think that we influence our children and we are one influence on our children. But, of course, there are so many influences, aren't there? I mean, unless you kind of keep them in the back bedroom. I've tried, but they're older now. You know, what are you going to do?